Hey there, it's Leslie at Leslie's Cookies and Treats, and today I'm making pencils and crayons royal icing transfers. This video is going to be a little bit longer, but we're going to go over how to do everything. So first I'm going to place my printout of my pencils and crayons royal icing transfer sheet inside a sheet protector. You can also put it under a piece of parchment paper, and I recommend you put it on top of a cookie sheet or a cutting board or something you can move to the side once you're finished. So to start off, it's best when you're making royal icing transfers if all of your icings are about a 20-second consistency. This is a bit of a thicker consistency. It makes your royal icing transfer a bit stronger, and it will stay in shape and it won't overflow the edges. It'll stay exactly where you're piping it. I went ahead and put down a dot for the tip of all of these pencils, and then I'm just going to use my scribe, or you can take a toothpick and shape it into a triangle. Now, one handy trick if your shape is not quite what you wanted and you're overflowing the borders, get your paintbrush damp and then wipe off all of the water on a paper towel. And then you can gently push over your edge so that it's the shape that you need it to be. If your paintbrush is sticking to the icing, just get it wet again. So moving back to the pencil, we're going to go ahead and outline and flood in the wooden part of the pencil. Going right up against the edge of the black pencil lead. You don't need to give the black pencil lead any time to dry before doing this. And once again, I'm just going to use my scribe, or as I said, you could take a toothpick and just shape this section of icing. And we're going to make these pencils with a wet on wet effect, so immediately I'm going to grab my yellow icing and outline the pencil part and flood that in. You don't have to use yellow. You can make your pencil any color that you want. It's often fun to have different colored pencils for back to school. And I'm going to drag some of my yellow into the brown part of the pencil so it looks like I just put it through the sharpener. And then continue to flood that in. And as always, I'm going to use my scribe to settle the icing down. Because all of the consistencies I'm using here are about a 20-second consistency, I am going to need to use my scribe to help settle the icing down and smooth it out and get it out to the corners. And while I was smoothing it out, I put my hand right in my other pencil lid, so I'm just going to have to wipe that away. I just thought I would throw this in there to show you that even people that do this all the time still make mistakes. And as frustrating as that may be, you can just start over and it's all going to be okay. So I'm going back to the pencil now and I'm going to skip the silver part because I want to let the yellow part of the pencil dry, and I'm going to pipe in the eraser. So I'm just going to outline and flood in the erasers. And then I'll go back with my scribe and shape them how I need them, and if need be, I will take my paintbrush and further move the edges so that it all lines up with the yellow pencil. Then I set these aside to dry for about 20 minutes while I piped the crayons at the bottom of the sheet, but we'll get to that in a moment. And then I came back and flooded in the gray part for the silver bit between the eraser and the pencil. And once again, I'm just going to shape this in here with my scribe, get it more into a rectangular shape rather than an oval. And I'll use the paintbrush if need be to push my edges so that everything lines up. Now let's move on down to the crayons. I'm also going to do a wet on wet effect here, with the exception of this first part of the tip of the crayon. So take the color of your choice and outline and flood in the tip of your crayon. I would go ahead and do all of the tips of your crayons now so that you can let those dry while you're working on other parts of the crayon. And as always, I will use my scribe to help shape this triangle and smooth it out. And here I didn't color inside the lines very well, and I don't think it's going to work very well either just to move it over with the paintbrush, so I'm going to scrape it off and just start again. Sometimes it's easier to erase and start over than it is to try to fix. Anyway, now that the tips of our crayons have had a chance to crust over, I'm going to go back and outline the rectangle right next to that and flood that in, and then these crayons are going to be a wet on wet effect all the way through. So I'm going to immediately grab my black icing and then my pink and continue until the crayon is finished. So grabbing my black icing, I'm going to outline this rectangle right next to it and flood that in. And then I'll use my scribe in an up and down motion, kind of just to jiggle the black icing to smooth it out. My black icing is actually a little thicker than a 20-second consistency. It's probably more of a 25-second, so I do need to jiggle it a little bit so it will incorporate with the pink and smooth out. And so now I'm just going to grab my pink icing again and outline the next little section of the crayon and flood that in, and we'll just continue going on, alternating colors until the crayon is finished. One of my favorite things about using royal icing transfers is that I can make many of them and then pick the best ones to put on my cookies so that all of my cookies look professional and flawless when they're finished. You also are going to want to make a couple of these because they do have a tendency to break when you're pulling them off of the parchment paper or off of your sheet protector. So make sure you make a couple extras. And here I'm just taking the black icing and outlining and flooding in the next section. And I'm doing this immediately after piping the pink because, again, this is a wet on wet effect where the whole wrapper of the crayon is going to blend together and look like one solid surface without any lines of separation in between. Oh, and one more thing about royal icing transfers. Well, two more things. They usually don't crater on you, so you don't have any indented areas of icing. And you don't have to worry about tracing the design onto your cookie because it's already on the piece of paper you printed off the computer. So you just need to take your crayons, or your royal icing in this case, and color within the lines. And once I get done shaping the end of this crayon, I'm going to go back with my paintbrush and just push up my edge and make sure that everything is nicely lined up. Again, your paintbrush needs to be dampened so it doesn't stick to the icing, and then all of the water needs to be washed off because you don't want to incorporate any more water. So do the same thing for all of your other crayon transfers, and then this transfer sheet will be done. Let it dry completely, at least 8 hours, and then you can peel it off the parchment sheet and place it on your cookies. You just want to take a dab of royal icing and put it on the back of the transfer to stick it down onto your cookies. And this royal icing transfer sheet is available on my website, www.l-treats.com. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this useful. If so, please hit the like and subscribe button. I have new tutorials every day.